Have you ever heard the expression, the eyes are the windows to the soul? Well, what if you didn't have eyes anymore? What if you didn't even have a face? What if you needed a new one? What if you were in a horrific accident, so brutal, so disturbing, that you actually needed a new face? Tonight's video features 5 true stories of regular everyday people like you and me. The only difference between them and us is they had their faces torn off. I want to leave a warning for this video. Due to the graphic nature of this content, viewer discretion is strongly advised. Number 1. Richard Norris. In 1997, a man named Richard Norris accidentally blew off half of his face with a shotgun in his own living room, not remembering why or how it happened. His mother only stood 3 feet away as pieces of Richard's face showered her body. The gunshot had blown off his nose, cheekbones, lips, tongue, teeth, jaw, and chin, leaving just his eyes in a swirl of nameless, twisted flesh. His parents covered all the mirrors in the house so that he wouldn't have to look at himself, and he would only eat in his room. For 15 years, Richard lived as a hermit and hid behind a black mask that covered the lower half of his face. The only time he would ever leave his house was at night, in fear of someone seeing his monstrous face. In 2012, his mom began researching the internet for reconstructive facial surgeons, hoping to give her son some type of hope of a normal life again. After connecting with Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez, he was convinced that he would help give Richard a new face, teeth, jaw, and tongue. He first tried dozens of surgeries, using Richard's own flesh from his forearm and legs, but they were failed attempts to help make him appear normal. After this, Dr. Rodriguez envisioned a full face transplant for Richard. Surgery involved 150 doctors, and the procedure took 36 hours to complete. The donor was in a car accident, whose sister-in-law later went to visit Richard after his surgery. She stated, "The resemblance, including skin tone and bone structure, to my brother is uncanny." Richard continued to receive tons of support and thousands of fan mail. He even found love after one of his fans became his girlfriend. Number 2. Connie Culp. In 2004, a 50-year-old wife and mom named Connie Culp was shot in the face by her own husband, Thomas Culp, in a failed murder-suicide attempt inside their bar in Hopdale, Ohio. The blast created hundreds of fragments from the shotgun pellet and bone splinters embedded all in her face. It shattered her nose, cheeks, the roof of her mouth, and an eye. She said, "I can remember everything. I remember him lifting the gun, and when he shot me, I flew back and hit my head on a doorknob. I was still conscious and walked downstairs to tell my sister to call the ambulance. Out of curiosity, I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror and saw my eye out and all of my skin was pulled away. It reminded me of something out of sci-fi." Her husband was convicted of aggravated attempted murder with only a 7-year sentence. Connie and Thomas both agree it was accidental, even though there was a history of abuse in the relationship. Connie shares, "I will always love my husband, as he is the father of my kids." She even forgave him at his sentencing and announced she would be waiting for him on his release date. While in prison, Connie decided to confront him and ask, "Do you think you abused me?" He responded with, "No. Well, maybe verbally." He released a statement to the media. "The shooting was accidental. I totally understand why people believe I'm a monster. I'm not. I am not a monster." Later in an Oprah interview, Connie announced that she would no longer be waiting for her husband on his release date. Her daughter opened her eyes when she asked, "What kind of example would you be setting for me if you went back to the man who shot your face off?" Connie's recovery was very long. She went through 30 operations in 3 years. The entire month up until her face transplant surgery, she said, "My whole face was sliding off. I couldn't even keep anything in my mouth. It was terrible." The transplant surgery lasted 22 hours, which replaced 80% of Connie's face from a donor who had recently died. She knew nothing about the donor, other than the fact that she was of the same age and height as her. Connie remains almost blind. Her right eye is a prosthetic, and her left eye is damaged. The skin on her face droops and folds, is very bloated and square-shaped. Overall, she continues to improve. She has learned Braille. She can talk, smile, smell, and even taste her food again. Connie currently works as an advocate, fostering understanding for survivors of burns and other disfigurements. Number 3. Dallas Weens. In 2008, Dallas Weens was standing inside a cherry picker while finishing up a painting job at a church. His lift drifted into the power lines, and his forehead accidentally made contact with the high-voltage power lines, and he was burned severely. He was quickly transported by helicopter, where surgeons spent 36 hours saving his life. They put him in a medically induced coma for 3 months, and he was left permanently blind, without lips, a nose, or eyebrows. 3 years after the accident, a team of more than 30 doctors performed a full face transplant. He currently wears sunglasses to hide his face. In 2003, he married a fellow hospital burn patient, who he had met at a burn survivors support group. They married at the same church where Dallas was burned, less than 4.5 years ago. He said, "It's where I was injured. It's where I was reborn. It's where the greatest part of my life will begin." Number 4. Charla Nash. Travis is a 200-pound male chimpanzee who was an animal actor and appeared on several television commercials, including Coca-Cola and Old Navy. Travis was very smart and could open doors using keys, could dress himself, water plants among other chores, and even eat dinner at the table with humans. The owner of the chimpanzee, Sandra Harold, called her friend Charla to help get her car keys back, which Travis had taken and left the front door of her house. When Charla arrived, she grabbed his favorite toy, and upon seeing it, the chimpanzee immediately attacked her. Sandra grabbed a shovel and started hitting Travis, then followed with a butcher knife and stabbed him. This only aggravated Travis more so. She called the police for help. They thought it was a hoax until she screamed, "He's eating her!" When the police arrived, Travis walked up to the police car and tried to open up one of the locked doors. He then smashed a side view mirror, and when the police officer opened the door, Travis began to attack the officer, who had to shoot him several times. Travis fled the scene and was soon after found dead next to his cage. He mauled Sandra's face and body, blinding her while severing her nose, ears, both hands, and severely lacerating her face. In an interview, Charla shares, "Travis ripped off my face, ate my hands, and I almost died." In 2011, 4 teams of surgeons underwent a 72-hour face transplant surgery that was fully funded by the government in exchange for research and tests. The chimpanzee's autopsy had been released and showed positive for Xanax, which Sandra had given him. Research shows that not only does this drug help with anxiety, but it can cause occasional reactions of hallucinations, aggression, rage, and mania. Charla's family filed a $50 million lawsuit against Sandra. After a few years, Charla reached a settlement with Sandra's estate and received $4 million. Number 5. Isabelle Denor. In 2005, a French woman named Isabelle Denor passed out after trying to commit suicide by an overdose of sleeping pills. She states, "After a very upsetting week with many personal problems, I took some pills to forget. I fainted and fell on the ground. During the night, her daughter said that their black Labrador named Tanya was frantically trying to wake her. He began scratching, clawing, and chewing at the bottom half of her face, to the point where it left Isabelle without lips, a part of her nose, chin, and cheeks missing. In the morning, she said, "When I woke up, I tried to light a cigarette, and I couldn't understand it wouldn't hold on my lips. It was then that I saw a sea of blood and my dog next to me." Isabelle underwent a 15-hour operation in which surgeons transplanted the nose, lips, and chin from a brain-dead donor. During her recovery, she kept a photo of her dog, Tanya, by her bedside. She was heartbroken when she learned Tanya had to be euthanized, but later adopted a different dog to aid in her recovery. Sadly, Isabelle's body kept her from accepting the foreign tissue and was prescribed immunosuppressive drugs to help. She later died in April of 2016 of cancer, which was scientifically linked to her immunosuppressive therapy. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that wasn't too intense for you. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Sinful Society. Stay sinful.